Briar Prestidge, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. Thanks for having me on the show.
I appreciate you coming on. I've been a fan of yours for a long time, and I was glad you accepted the invitation because I wanted to talk to you about not only your journey as a content creator, but also as a futurist. And also, we talked a little bit online about your uh, subdermal chips that you had implanted, and I would like to talk to you about that as well. But to get started, what inspired you to get into the futurist movement? What was it that you saw that you wanted to be a part of this?
I think I've always been a curious person by nature. And I grew up on a very small town farm in New Zealand called Darfield. And I always was wanting to see what's next and, how much could I push to the boundaries and explore and be curious. And my journey took me from Darfield to Australia to New York to London to Dubai. And I live between Dubai and New York. And I started my first business about 8 years ago. So, and it's an executive branding and PR agency. And it was a little bit before its time, back when people weren't really posting on LinkedIn unless they were looking or hiring for jobs. But I could see how the future of the media landscape was changing. And the business was a bit before its time, and really the only people that wanted to do executive branding back then and could see how it was changing was technology entrepreneurs. So I think that's really where my love for tech started, my love for the future. And, at the end of the day, I think we should all be curious about the future so that the future is built with all of us in mind and without bias. Like, we can't have the same people building the future. And historically, they've been older white men. So it's really important that we are partaking. And I think as well, there's a lot of fearfulness when it comes to the future too. And because we are definitely going through a period of super exponential change. Experts are saying there's going to be more change in the next 100 years than in the last 20,000 years. So significant amounts of change. And I think what we all have to remember as we go through this period of change is this concept of flexible thinking. And like, this is just what it means to be human. My job didn't exist 20 years ago as it does today, and it probably won't exist in another 20 years, but that's just what it means to be human. We evolve and we change. And I think what I'm trying to do through my projects such as Cyborg To Be, my reality TV series that I'm currently producing, my podcast Hyperskill, my digital fashion label that I launched on Roblox, which has this futuristic space and very interesting futuristic fashion. And I think I know what I'm trying to achieve is I'm trying to get more people to be interested in the future, because we all need a diverse group of people to come together so that the future is built with all of us in mind. And the kind of future that might appeal to one group isn't necessarily going to be the same future that's going to appeal to a different group. And so, hey, at the end of the day, we all just have to get off our phones, stop playing on social media and being placated by the cheap dopamine hits that it provides us, and be part of it.
Well, a project that you worked on a few years ago was called 48 Hours in the Metaverse. And I
Yes.
watched that again the other day because it was one of the reasons why I bought this thing. and
Oh,
I uh,
wonderful. An Oculus.
I was fascinated by your time in that project. It's one thing to see you doing it, but how did it feel to you spending that much time in VR? Because to me, an hour is too much, and you did it for like two days. How was that?
It was challenging. Let's just put it that way. Certainly spending such long amounts of time in a headset is like, I got very bad cyber sickness. At one point, I didn't think I was going to be able to go on. I felt hot flushes. I felt like I was going to vomit. I also slept in the metaverse as well. But at the same time, the thing that really pushed me forward was my curiosity. I was seeing such fascinating things. I went to 33 different virtual worlds. I slept in virtual reality in a sleeping room so I could hear all these people like snoring and snuffling around me. Yeah, people do this. People who aren't spending 48 hours nonstop in the metaverse actually do this. And I just saw such incredible things, like how people were being supported who were undergoing chemotherapy. Like they were all coming together, sharing their experiences in virtual reality and escaping from their hospital beds, so to speak. And I went to red carpet events. I went to Burning Man. I saw this amazing, almost like psychedelic dance in front of me. And it was just so beautiful. And one of the things that I love so much is this concept of shared experience, right? Like in this kind of virtual world we live in, it can often be quite two-dimensional. And back in the day, social media used to be social, but now it's not so social. Like we used to engage, we used to be part of this almost community, whereas now it doesn't really feel like that. But the metaverse is very much bringing this back. And by the way, people often say to me, oh, but Briar, why are you so into the metaverse? Like the metaverse is dead, because the hype all started to die down. But little do they know that there are 63 million daily users on the platform Roblox, which some people are saying could be an early prototype of the metaverse platform, of a metaverse. Right. And a lot of these people that are on there are Gen Z and Gen Alpha. And one day these virtual natives are going to be older and buying NFTs, socializing, like this is just normal stuff for them. There's more kids on Roblox than there is on social media. They're not on social media. So the future is going to be very different. And I think we will have a lot of augmented reality. Like, we could be sitting here together as holograms rather than doing it over, the Zoom-like platform. So I think we will really start to see this integration of our physical virtual worlds. We have to. Like, to me, it's so backwards carrying my phone around like an extension of my arm, like when I could just have like a BCI, a brain computer interface in the future. Like, why not?
Well, speaking of brain computer interfaces, you interviewed Nolan Arbol, who was Neuralink's first patient to use their brain computer interface. What was that like? When you were interacting with Nolan, did it seem that it was a natural thing? Did it seem like it was a extra appendage or anything like that? Was it
Nolan is an incredible person and he's so pioneering. So Nolan is paralyzed from his shoulders down. And for him, this Neuralink has brought him so much hope and autonomy. He's able to socialize, he's able to play chess, he's able to surf the internet. And interestingly, when one speaks to Nolan, he speaks about a future where he could possibly walk and move his arms. And to be honest, this could be a very real possibility with the likes of robotics and artificial intelligence. And unfortunately, there seems to be a lot of stigma behind brain-computer interfaces. A lot of people seem to have this perception that the governments are going to just like hold us all down and force them all into us. But like realistically, that's not about to happen. And to be honest, the worst thing that could possibly happen is that people like Nolan and companies like Neuralink don't receive the funding and the innovation stops. And at the end of the day, we owe people technology to live their most healthiest and best life. And there's a lot of use cases for Neuralinks as well, such as blindness and ALS and Alzheimer's. Like these are all things that it's hoping in the future it would be able to cure. And in regards to my interactions with Nolan, he's in a wheelchair, obviously. It was very easy to access the Neuralink. I just had to touch his skull and he would go computer on, computer off. And we actually played a game of chess and unfortunately I lost. So that was not so good, but no, he's a very epic human being. And for him, he understands that maybe he doesn't have the best version. Like you ask him about it, like there's been a lot of press talking about Nolan being like, oh yeah, the Neuralink's failing, like blah, blah, blah. But when you talk to him, he's like, listen, like I knew going into this that the first version wasn't going to be perfect because it's the first version. The version after this, the version after this, like it's constantly going to be improving. And, so we have to, yeah, he's just incredible. He's honestly, like everyone watch the interview and you'll be so inspired by him and his bravery and just his way that he approaches life. Yeah, we can all learn so much from him.
And they recently introduced a second person to the Neuralink who they're calling Alex. And it's just interesting to see that like this person went from just being able to move a cursor to playing first-person shooter games, and that just shows you the quality and where this technology is going. Speaking of technology, in your hand is a subdermal chip that you had implanted by Dangerous Things. So tell me a little bit about that. Why did you have it implanted? What was the process like? Can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. So I brought my RFID chip on a platform called Dangerous Things, and it's a website. So anyone can access them and buy one for themselves. And to be honest, I hear you can even implant it yourself. You take the syringe that it comes with and you kind of just shove it on into your hand. But if you're not game for that, I obviously certainly wasn't. I decided to go to Philadelphia and to a company that does a lot of they do snake tongue slitting and piercings and tattoos, and thankfully didn't walk out with a slit tongue piercing, slit snake tongue. But I did meet Sophia the robot there from Hanson's Robotics, and she also got an RFID microchip implanted into the fleshy part on her neck. So that was very interesting. And we spoke about the future, and my RFID chip, it allows me to unlock my house and my car, and you can add me on LinkedIn if you want. And I'm actually going back to Philadelphia. Probably in a couple of months' time, I'm going to get the payment chip in my hand, which is very underground, kind of made in the garage at the moment, because apparently Visa and MasterCard are yet to approve it.
Gotcha. Well, I spoke to the founder, and they also do Bitcoin wallets, where you can actually put that in your hand as well. I was thinking about it, but I was like, I'm going to have a hard time justifying that one to the family. So maybe not you.
Honestly, Sophia the robot, she actually made me end up getting a tattoo with her. So we were getting our microchips, and this robot turns to me and she's like, hey, we should get piercings now. We should go get a tattoo. It was just the most craziest thing. It felt like I was in a real life episode of The Hangover, except we weren't drunk. And we went to this tattoo parlor, and both myself and the robot are getting tattoos, and the robot started singing opera. It was just blimmin' weird, really. But nice. The tattoo and piercing was actually a lot more painful, I thought, than the RFID microchip. So that was interesting. So maybe you can toughen up and go get one.
Well, I'll run it by the family, see what they say.
Yeah, see what they say. Exactly.
When you got it, though, how long did it take for it to actually be usable? Was it instant?
It was instant, yeah. It was instant. Though I have had a security problem since. My friend scanned it, and he told me that my microchip's presently open source and you can write whatever on it. So he wrote something about, I don't know, he wrote something awkward on it. So I need to hack it and delete it. So yeah, right now it says something about cyber toast or something. So yeah, if you scan it, you've got the ability to. So I need to understand the technology more. Honestly, I need to ring my friend. I need to talk to Corey Lord, who helped implant it, and just kind of familiarize myself with it a little bit more. Yeah, but it's very interesting. I love it.
It's a part of your Cyborg To Be brand. Now that's a project you've been working on for a while. Now, you've also interviewed people in the transhumanist movement. Is the Cyborg To Be in the transhumanist movement, is that related, or is that two separate things in your opinion?
So Cyborg To Be is my protagonist journey to explore the future and to encourage other people to be excited and curious and to partake, so that the future's all built with us in mind. And I'm basically saying it's like Kim Kardashian meets science. Right. I'm bringing a lot of very philosophical, amazing, futurist transhumanists, scientists, experts to the table, and I'm trying to make it, produce it in a reality TV style manner so that the masses are excited by it and watch it and start to partake and get off their phones, essentially. So as part of my explorations, I ended up in Arizona, in Scottsdale, in the cryonics facility, so Alcor. Life extension. And that was really interesting, talking to James, who is the CEO, about whether or not I might preserve my body via cryonics, so that in 100, 300 years time, after or if I die, I might be revived. And it was a very interesting discussion. And I think with a lot of these topics that I'm exploring is I'm I'm starting to understand that no thinking is black and white. Thinking is very nuanced, and we can be for something and against it at the same time. For instance, when it comes to cryonics, part of me doesn't want to freeze myself. Part of me thinks that's a really crazy idea, and maybe I'd be better being cremated or buried in the ground. And what about the afterlife? Like, there's a lot of religious aspects one has to consider. But interestingly, when I interviewed him, he also brought up some other talking points that I hadn't necessarily thought of, such as Einstein back in the day. His brain was cut up into about 200 pieces and mailed all around the world, thinking that people would be able to discover what made him so smart. But we know now that it's to do with the brain and the synapses and the neurons and how it all interacts with it. Whereas if we had a preserved Einstein's brain, we would have been able to look at it a lot more effectively today with the technology that we have. I also think of it almost as being a bit like a science experiment. It's not selfish, me wanting to freeze myself. I might not even be able to be revived in the future, but maybe the next person after me or the next person after me might be able to, or perhaps my organs might be able to be frozen for somebody else to enjoy them and to live longer. So yeah, there's really interesting discussions. I also have been writing a manifesto with Natasha Whittemore. So she's one of the very prominent transhumanists. She wrote the Transhumanist Manifesto back in the 1980s. I think you've interviewed her before in the past, haven't you?
Well, I'm working on it.
Oh, she's incredible. She's so incredible. And, she's been a real guiding light to my transhumanist journey into the future. I met with Max Moore. He's very pioneering in the cryonic space. We spoke a lot when I stayed with them in Scottsdale about how a lot of people have a very victim mindset when it comes to today's society, rather than just stepping up and being proactive and perhaps understanding that we can create a life for ourselves. I also have just been documenting my journey as an entrepreneur. Sorry, one second. And I've just also been documenting my journey as an entrepreneur, launching my Roblox label. And like I said, just really giving this real life, raw, behind the scenes, what it's like to be me, I guess.
I've interviewed a few transhumanists so far. This is a part of the series that I'm doing on transhumanism. And I've seen a lot of, there is a conviction here that I didn't think I would see, that they really believe in the cause that they're advocating for. Did you feel that when you were talking to these people, that conviction, that determination to see this through?
Oh, absolutely. And I think, unfortunately, the transhumanist community, it does get a bad rep. Because I think a lot of people are fearful and there's a lot of unnecessary stigma about it. But really what I feel from the transhumanist community is that they want to create an ethical future, and they have this understanding that through science and technological and medical advancements, we can help shape humanity. We can play a proactive role. And by the way, one might argue that all of us are transhumanists. People wear glasses to read. People have artificial hips. Like, just even the fact that humans invented shoes to help with our soft foot shortcomings that we faced, or we created fishing rods so that we could fish and catch food. Like, we really are relatively hopeless creatures when you think about it. But what we do have is these amazing brains, and, the fact that we can use technology, we can create a better life for ourselves. But I don't understand, in all honesty, why people wouldn't want to use transhumanism or don't see, like, to me, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, what's the alternative? Like, at the end of the day, the world's going to evolve, the world's going to change. Like, that's just what it means to be human. We don't really have an alternative. Like, we can either sit back on the couch and be fearful and pretend stuff's not happening around us and just let artificial intelligence or things run wild. Innovation is always going to innovate. If one person stops building, the next person is just going to be building in their garage. So we might as well try and guide it and do something better with it. I don't think there's really an alternative.
Let's go back to your metaverse. your Altair is the name of it,
Altair, yes.
the fashion line and store that you opened on Roblox. Is that correct?
Yes.
So what
Correct.
was
Yeah, we've got a huge futuristic shopping mall and fashion line.
I checked it out when you first announced
Oh,
it.
wonderful.
It's pretty cool. But what inspired you to do that? Was are you seeing a lot of people asking for virtual clothing, virtual fashion? Are you seeing that online?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been in the digital fashion space since about 2022. So, and throughout my world hopping in the metaverse, I was very much inspired by how in the metaverse we can show up and we can be whoever we want. We can wear dresses made of fire, or we can turn up with purple skin. Like it doesn't matter. And what people need to remember is that the metaverse isn't dead, it's just not quite here yet. For instance, on Roblox has 73 million daily users, and a lot of these users are Generation Z and Generation Alpha, so the virtual natives. And these kids aren't on social media buying NFTs, socializing on these platforms. Like, this is just normal behavior for them. And one day these kids are going to be older. And with this, we're going to see this integration of our physical and virtual worlds. And we're also going to see a lot of really other cool stuff when it comes to fashion as well. For instance, I think that in the future, we might wear augmented reality contacts. We might have brain computer interfaces. And I could be sitting here in front of you and my dress could be changing like color like 5 times a minute. I could have this really cool augmented reality overlay, or perhaps in the future, in fact, some of the stuff's already happening, like artificial intelligence predicting next fashion trends. Like, that's really interesting before they even happen. So there's a lot more sustainability that can go into fashion, or perhaps in the future we might have a 3D printer in our house so we can just 3D print our clothing on demand. How amazing would that be? But one of the reasons why I wanted to get into this digital fashion space is I wanted to experiment. I wanted to see what the younger generations are like, and understand more about their buying behaviors, so that in the future I have an understanding. And I also wanted to get them excited about the future as well, because the next generations have to remember that, yeah, there's problems with today's society. There's things that are less than ideal. We've got some very real concerns that we have to address, but we also have a lot more power than what we realize.
So, looking at the stats you provided for Altair, 18,000 plus global player visits,
Yeah, in
5,000 plus
15
virtual fashion
days.
items, and that was all in in about 2 weeks, right?
It was in a very short amount of time. So Altair is going from strength to strength. We had a really great studio that worked with us. 24-year-old designers. They've been in the Roblox space since they were like 14. So they really got what these users wanted to see. So I obviously oversaw everything with my team from a brand perspective, and some of the initial design considerations we wanted to keep in mind. You know, they looked at those and they said, no, we can't do suits on the platform. They like more casual clothes, or, because of the platform limitations, we can't have big puffy shoulders, Briar. We have to kind of, do something a little bit different. So it was really kind of coming up with a brand that felt very true to my design and my brand and what I like to see in fashion, but then creating something that the users love. And I really do think that in the future we are going to see a digital first fashion label born. Like Fortnite, for instance, another potential future metaverse platform, another gaming platform. Like, they make more money on virtual clothes. They're the second largest fashion retailer in the world. They're above like the H&Ms, the Zaras, the Guccis, and all of these. They make a lot of money on digital fashion. So I think it's a very interesting time. And I'm excited to see where the fashion label goes next.
I wanted to ask you about a project that you had been involved in the past with Interpol. So you were their Metaverse branded board advisor. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes. So Interpol decided so they've got an amazing, incredible board of people, experts on the metaverse, but they felt they needed someone with some real life experience. And that's obviously where I came in after doing so much world hopping and obviously my work with my digital fashion labels and things like this. And we pulled together, so I'm on the investigations and forensics subcommittee. So we pulled together this really amazing paper about the metaverse and how potentially we could solve crime in the space as well.
Is that paper online? Can we link to it?
It is, yes, I can find you the link for it.
Okay, perfect. And then lastly, you are the host of Hyperskill, which is your podcast where you talk about these subjects. When did you get started and what did you learn from talking to all the people that you have?
That no answer lasts forever is essentially my biggest take home message. So, I'm very much of the mindset that we can shape the future by asking all the right questions. And that's really what I do. I ask a lot of questions. I hear a lot of very interesting, diverse and nuanced perspectives. And, I just want people to be excited about the future. I want people to be curious about it. And I've had so many fascinating guests, from talking about consciousness and what it really is, to is there life after death, to brain computer interfaces, to the future of fashion. And